As Raptors fans, it's very easy to get carried away with this Cade Cunningham draft propaganda, but the most likely scenario is that the Raptors end up with the 7th or 8th pick in this upcoming NBA draft lottery. So with that in mind, in this video, we're going to look at the sleeper pick that the Raptors need to draft with that selection in this upcoming draft. Let's get into it. Welcome NBA and Raptors fans to Amateur Hour Sports. This is the channel where you get NBA content with a focus on the Toronto Raptors at least 4 days a week. That's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. This is your Monday episode where we're talking about Keon Johnson, the shooting guard out of Tennessee, and why the Raptors should draft him. So if you like what you see from today's video, you want more of myself talking about the Raptors and the rest of the NBA in videos and content just like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below to show support to the channel. We are well on our road to 4,000 subscribers. Thank you everybody for the great support coming in very recently on the channel. But let's get into the content for today. Again, we are talking about Keon Johnson, who is a little bit of a slept-on player in this upcoming draft. People may not understand how high of a ceiling this guy has, and we're going to kind of break it down and showcase why that might be the case here for him. So this is a bit of a draft breakdown and why the Raptors should select him here. This is the first of a 3-part series where we break down who the Raptors should draft in the most likely case, which is today, the best case, which comes Wednesday, and the worst case, which comes on the Saturday upload. So I think that the most likely case, even though there is a 31.9% chance of the top 4 pick, most likely scenario, we have a 7th or 8th pick, and the best case video on Wednesday is we get the 3rd or 4th pick, because we already know who we're taking if we get the 1 or 2 pick, and the Saturday video is the worst case from the lottery. So if we end up with the 10th pick, or somehow the 11th pick, that is who we should take in that slot. But today we are going into the most likely scenario. So in the very likely event that we get the 7th or 8th pick, my thinking is that the Raptors should draft Keon Johnson out of Tennessee. Now let's break down a little bit of his college stats, and then we're going to go into his strengths and then his weaknesses, followed by at the end of the video we're going to give you his player comparable, who you should compare him to in the NBA. So for starters, his college stats, I got to admit, they aren't the most eye-popping thing in the world. Playing for Tennessee, where he wasn't the focal point of an offense because the team was so loaded, he averaged 11.3 points per game, 2.5 assists per game, 3.5 rebounds per game on 45% shooting, which is quite impressive, but only 27% shooting from 3. Now, included in those rebounds per game, he did average an offensive rebound per game as well as a steal per game. So there are some good things about this, but they aren't the most eye-popping stats. You're probably thinking, Jacob, well, why would we draft this guy with the 7th or 8th pick in the upcoming NBA draft if we are to end up in those selections? Surely we can get a more polished player for this role, but let's go into the strength, into why this player is so intriguing to me. So easily for Keon Johnson, the most intriguing thing about him as a player is the fact that he's got that jump out of the gym athleticism. When you watch a game he's playing in, you notice him right away because his athletics are out of this world. He's got insane hops, insane bounce, insane agility, which really help him as an elite slasher for this Tennessee team. And this will translate, I think, quite well into the NBA. It's also mixed with the fact that he's got a good NBA draft age. He's only 19 years old, and he's also got good size. You see that he's 6'5" in the shooting guard position. This also allows him to play as a small forward, but a good height as well as the size. He's got good strength about his game as well. So that will help him on the defensive end and also the offensive end because he is such a good interior scorer. Even though he isn't the best in terms of his jump shot, the fact that he's got a 45% field goal percentage showcases the fact that he can get to the rim, finish above bigger defenders. He's also got a good shooting stroke about his game. It's not the best shooting percentages, but the shooting mechanics are there, and that is something that the Raptors will look at as an intriguing factor about his player because they can develop him into a good shooter in the NBA. Not every good player comes into the NBA having shot well in college, especially as a freshman in college, but with those good shooting mechanics already there, it's easy for the development teams to work with that player and get that shooting percentage up even before the NBA season starts, and they can already be a good shooter as a rookie. And I think that Keon Johnson could fit into this category category as well. The best facet of his game, other than athleticism, is the fact that he is a great defender. He's a lockdown on-ball defender and a very active and very talented off-ball defender. In terms of his on-ball defending, again, with the lateral quickness, again, with the agility, he is so good at keeping up with his check, keeping him in front of it, and playing some solid defense, getting some good stops, which will fit in very well to the philosophy instilled into the Toronto Raptors. That mixed along with the great hustle that this player possesses, he will be able to guard multiple players in the league, whether it be in the shooting guard position or the small forward position. Because of his good height, he can play some great lockdown defense and the off-ball defense. You know, the Raptors play a system that has so many rotations to it. He can play good off-ball defense. He cuts passing lanes. He has active hands, which can lead to that 1 steal per game that he did have in college, and that can improve as well as he gets to the NBA. And when he gets the ball on defense, he can turn defense into offense. He has some little bit of point guard tendencies about his game. You know, doesn't always get the most assists, but as a form of running the offense, he can do a good job in that dynamic. So the biggest things about him is the fact that insane athleticism, the fact that he plays great defense, I would say NBA ready defense already, and the shooting mechanics are there. That is a project that you'd have to take on with the Raptors. So that leads us into the weaknesses that Keon Johnson possesses. Let's be fair, he's got a few of those. So easily the biggest weakness, if you do want to call it that, is the fact that this is an extremely raw player. 19 years old, maybe not usually the way the Raptors operate with the draft, but they would have to take an extremely raw player and a project here. Now, another thing about his game is, again, those shooting percentages, they aren't the best. His jump shot isn't the best, and his three-point percentage absolutely is not the best, and projections would suggest that won't carry over well into the NBA. But there are guys, again, who come into the league who don't shoot the three ball well in college, but if they've got those good shooting mechanics down, they can work on it and already be effective shooters when they start their NBA career as a rookie. Keon Johnson may fit into this category. Another weakness is the fact that he did have a limited college role with a loaded Tennessee team. So we didn't really get to see him as the focal point on an offensive set, but if you saw it in the strengths as well, he can play in a role for this team. So he doesn't need to be the first or second option to be effective. And for a Raptors team who may wind up with a 7th or 8th pick, if they do, they'll probably re-sign Gary Trent to be that starting shooting guard. Keon Johnson, who plays well in the limited role, doesn't need to be the focal point. So even though he wasn't the focus, still was effective. So he can be that off-ball guy. He can be the guy who isn't the main man and come off the bench as maybe a sixth man for Gary Trent and still be effective for this Toronto Raptors team. The final weakness, and it's a big one, he's not quite NBA ready. Again, if you take this guy, you got to work on him as a project because he is so young. You got to work on him for maybe 1 or 2 years to get him to that true star level. He needs to be, really molded to reach his potential, but my goodness, does this guy have a very high ceiling in the NBA, which makes him so intriguing. And the last thing I have here, it's not necessarily a weakness, but his passing. Doesn't always have the best passing, but his court vision is quite good. And again, in the strength I said, he does have a bit of a point forward tendency about his game. So even when he's not getting all the assists, he can still manage an offense as the main ball handler carrying the ball up a court, which again is something that the Raptors could continue to work with. But the biggest thing about the weaknesses is it's a bit of a project here, and you have to trust that he can get these things. He can get that three-point percentage, that jump shot in his game, and be effective in the NBA. And you got to be a little bit patient with this guy. Can the Raptors afford to be patient for the fact that they didn't make the playoffs this season? That will remain to be seen. I think a very good player to compare Keon Johnson's game to is Jaylen Brown, a guy who was very athletic, who wasn't like the main star in college, but still came into the NBA as a raw talent, raw prospect, and developed up into an all-star basically. So Jaylen Brown in college averaged about 14 points per game and 29% shooting, but because of his good shooting mechanics and his athleticism, the Boston Celtics took him in. And even though he wasn't the most effective player for the first couple of seasons in the NBA, because of that good shooting mechanics, he developed into a very good three-point shooter that we now know in the NBA, plays some solid defense, and again, not the most eye-popping player in college, but the potential was there, and the Boston Celtics harnessed that potential, and that is what the Raptors can do with Keon Johnson. He's essentially a smaller version of Jaylen Brown, who has, I would say, a little bit more athleticism about his game, a little bit more of a quickness. So it would be easy for Keon Johnson, I think, to get that three-point percentage into the mid-30s over the course of his NBA career, and with such a high ceiling, I think that this is absolutely a player that the Raptors should take on with the 7th or 8th selection in this draft if they do wind up in that position, because so much upside to work with. The prospect of the Raptors development team working with this player makes my mouth water. So again, guys, this is the most likely scenario that we end up with the 7th or 8th pick. On Wednesday, we're going to do the best case, so ending up with the 3rd or 4th pick in the draft, and on Saturday, we will do the worst case scenario where we get the 10th or maybe even somehow the 11th pick in the NBA draft lottery. On Friday, we'll do something a little bit different to spice up the content, but keep those notification bells on to stay up to date with that draft content coming very soon. So what do you guys make of Keon Johnson? Would you want the Raptors to get somebody who's more NBA ready, or are you willing to take a chance on a guy with some insane upside in the 7th or 8th position? I want to hear all of your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Remember, it's just speculation. We don't know where we're going to end up, but if we do, let me know what you think. That wraps up for me for today. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you are still here, make sure to smash that like button to show that you are still here and made it to the end of the video. It also helps us reach some new viewers on the channel with that YouTube algorithm to get more people involved with that content. Also, check out our Twitch, twitch.tv/amateursports. We stream a ton of NBA playoff games, and as well, we do some other fun content. Like tonight, we got something fun planned for you guys. If you know, you know. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. On the road to 4,000 subscribers, you can help us get to that insane milestone of 4,000. Some other videos by the channel you may enjoy, and always remember, at the end of the day, I believe what I say, and if you disagree, that is okay. We'll see you again next time for another video.